Well, we're the only truly legitimate professional theater company in the city. And our mission is to entertain and educate our society, so, and we do works that are newer, and and a mix of musical comedies and drama. And sometimes you can, even a comedy can make you think, right, and reflect. Um, because when you sign up for a subscription to ICT, lots of times there's plays or writers you've never heard of, so you're taking that journey with us and trusting us. And this is our 35th anniversary. Not much of a celebration with COVID, but I've already announced my 36th anniversary, which opens in February. So we'll see how things go then. But we also do 6 education programs for every age and demographic from 4 to 104. And that's been a huge part of the work we do as well, because it's so important to reach children and start there with helping them find positive ways to express themselves, to get the creative thinking process started, and as well as the critical thinking skills that are needed for theater. So we have something to reach every age: children, low-income seniors. We provide buses and tickets so that they can, stay mentally and socially engaged. And research shows how important that is to their, not just quality of life, but their longevity. So when COVID happened, and, when we were lucky because we opened in February. So our February, March show closed just before everything shut down March 13. So how do we stay viable as a theater company? The biggest challenge is, how do you plan for the unknown? So as we looked, as we kept moving shows and having to cancel one and go to the next slot and the next slot until we ran out of, space. And, this Daisy production, which was cast in February and is relevant and about this year, a political year, and wanted so badly to tell this story because we think it's important for our society to hear. And it wasn't when we got to the last slot, which would have been October, November, we realized it's either a virtual production or we can't do the show. So we explored new territory, doing a Zoom production. I've yet to see the copy. It's everybody memorized lines. We had costume designers delivering costumes. We had props being delivered. We had green screens delivered, everything it took, because the protocols to try to get together were just far too expensive and crazy. And for our education programs, we did offer something this summer for children. We did 2 2-week sessions, and the focus was acting and playwriting. So they would write a play and then perform it. And normally it's a 4-week program, but then it's also the singing and the dancing and everything else incorporated. But so we had to adjust. Our 3rd grade school program, where we go into the classroom, had to be revamped for a virtual platform. And we did that, but the school district is still not ready. I mean, this whole thing with virtual teaching has been a big trial for the district, for the teachers, for the parents, for the kids. It's not ideal, but we have to educate. I'm a big believer in education. So I think I taught college for 25 years, so it's really important to me. When New York called me more than a year ago about the play Daisy, and this is knowing that this was a political year and they had this political play, and they told me about it. And so of course I was interested. And I said, well, but I want to read it first, of course, because I wanted to make sure we weren't bashing either side. I don't think people stay open-minded when they feel like they're being attacked. I feel like if we want to make a difference, if we want people to think, if we want to create a better dialogue in our community, then it shouldn't be about bashing one side or the other. And it isn't. This play is so, well, it's historic also. It's based on the 1964 election between Johnson and Goldwater. And it was the early days of television. And it was the first negative televised political ad that aired. And it's the Daisy ad, which is still studied in political science now. And it only aired once, and then it was banned. And that's who we were then with negative ads, right? Then you look at who we are now, and really the question is, who do we want to be? You know, we really do need to find a more respectful way to have discourse, a more honest way too. So that's why when I read the play, I was sold and wanted so badly to do it. I got the California premiere to do it. And then when we went into the audition process and cast the show in February, I have the most extraordinary group of actors. They have been, they're so talented, of course, that had to come first, but they're so intelligent and they're so kind, and they do research too. I happen to love history myself personally. So to find people that are that excited about it and what it had to say as well, and understood the relevance and importance of telling this story to our region and getting people to think about this. And they shared that passion and they stayed with me, and we were all very sad that we couldn't do it in person. But it is what it is. But also the challenge with this, the Zoom rehearsals, because there's so much else in the play, footage from history, like Rockefeller and Goldwater talking, and you get to see the Daisy ad that's provoked all this. And, commercials of the day. I mean, just puts you in that 1964 era. And when you're looking at it, they're talking about they just came out of the 1962 Cuba missile crisis. And so they're still talking about Cuba. And somebody brings up Vietnam and they said, oh, that's, they dismiss it, right? And boy, look what history shows now about that. It's just interesting, the perspective 1964 and what they were concerned about and how much is so relevant still today. One of the things that I think is important for you to understand about the play Daisy is where it comes from and how it got started, and that ad and the historical nature of the story, because a lot of the characters in the play are actual real people from history. When you look at Tony Schwartz, who was considered a communications guru, who had agoraphobia, didn't like to leave his 8 blocks. He worked in his basement. And 1964, he even found a way he was teaching, not the students coming to him. There was a way he found a way to communicate outside his walls, which is amazing to us thinking of 1964. I mean, virtual teaching now is not, unheard of. But also the Madison Avenue advertising firm, several characters in the play come from that firm. This was a huge firm. It still is. It's still around. Doyle Dane Bernbach. It's now called DDB Worldwide because the 3 named people are no longer here with us. But Bernbach's in the play. And I mean, they had major contracts with American Airlines and these major companies. And this was their first political campaign where they were hired to do the advertising and the ads, and just the disagreements that they have about where they're going and what they're doing with this Daisy ad, and how they might be perceived. And I mean, they won an award for this ad, even and it changed things. It changed the way we look at things, because it was the Johnson campaign that produced this ad, and in the ad they never mentioned Goldwater's name, but the way they used an image and some of the things Goldwater had said was enough for you to know what they were talking about. And one of the characters is afraid this is going to scare people, and then the responsible people are already scared and afraid that Goldwater would take us into a nuclear war from some of the things he said. And Tony Schwartz, till the day he died, thought it was not an ad about fear, but about good and understanding. So you can make up your mind yourself when you see the show. Another interesting point, if I may talk about the play, is the writer, Sean Devine. Sean Devine is a Canadian. And to think that he's writing about American politics, and maybe it had that little distance looking at it, it gives you another perspective as well. But he's also going to promote the show in Canada, which I'm thrilled about. So, because that's the one thing about virtual productions now, we can expand outside of our geographic area. I mean, we have someone from Arizona that's already been in touch, and somebody from Alabama. So we have that opportunity to, if people hear about us, to expand our audience. What do I want the audience to get from this production, from this play? I want them to think about who we were, how we handled ourselves, and I'm not saying there wasn't negative stuff then, but television has a greater effect than, like negative news that was in newspapers. They even talk about that in the play from John Quincy Adams when he was running. But that was the newspaper, it wasn't like social media today. Well, social media wasn't a big thing in '64, but television was becoming a big deal. And we saw that with Kennedy, debates with Nixon, so this is only a, short time later. And so I want people to think about who we really want to be. How do we want the rest of the world to look at us, and how we behave, and how do we hold on to our democracy and stay true to our values as Americans. I just think we need to let our better angels guide us. And everybody wants to win in a race or a competition or politics, but politics affects all of us in so many ways. Elections have consequences, they say, right? So we need to do our part too. We need to study the issues. We need to study the people that are running. And it's so easy to throw stones, but we have to understand bigger picture. I mean, none of us have gone through and not made a mistake in our lives that as we grow, hopefully, we say, oh, why did I make that choice or whatever, that we're not just condemning someone because 20 years ago they said this, or we have to see, have they grown? Have they, learned more about an issue or something and changed a position? That's not a bad thing necessarily, unless you're flip-flopping all over the place, I mean, you have to try to, intelligently review that. And I think that's why, to me, the play was so important, because we do have to think about our responsibility as well. Well, in elections. Well, you can go to our website and it'll take you to the right. So internationalcitytheatre.org, and theater is spelled THEATRE, internationalcitytheatre.org, or you can just do ictlongbeach.org, and that will take you there as well. Or you can call our box office at 562-436-4610, 562-436-4610. We definitely want people to join us and love to hear back on how you respond. And if anyone would like to help ICT, of course, donations are most welcome. And you can find that information also on our website, ictlongbeach.org. And it's tax deductible. We are a 501c3 nonprofit professional theater. And professional theater is really important because, and I'm not saying community theater isn't either. I do believe in that as well. It's people who don't choose it as a profession, but want that outlet as an artist themselves. But we need to invest in the people that are investing in the art form, and actors and designers and directors and playwrights. They need to be supported or we won't have theater. So it's important if there's a theater that you care about, that it's important that you support them, because our future depends on it.